Hey guys.
Sorry for the bit of the impromptu interview. We don't really know how to plan this stuff very well. But,
It's all right. You know what? You have self-aggregated into what strikes me as a reasonably organized bunch. So I think you're doing okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
So who was up first? Who had the first question?
I guess Jill.
Well, Jill's typing. Jill's typing, but Mac, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have my first one.
Nice to meet you. I'm the owner of the community server.
That's Jill talking.
Okay, awesome.
Mac, you read your question?
Okay, so Mac's going to read
I have
his
my
question.
first question.
All right.
All right, so, Mr. Richard, how was the transition when you went from being a voice actor to becoming a teacher?
It was very abrupt, actually. At the time, I was working as a producer at a special effects company in Portland. We did the special effects for a TV show called Grimm. I don't know if you've come across that in your travels. So I worked on most of season 1 of Grimm, and just felt that the work was becoming increasingly repetitive, and that I felt I was moving in ever-decreasing circles. And I had always regretted not having gone to college. I was a bit of a screw-up in high school. Didn't do particularly well, didn't go to college, and I'd always felt that was something that was kind of missing from my life. And then I came back from my vacation at my producer's job. I got back to just this horrible cluster of disaster that happened while I was away. And I was like, you know what? I never want to do this ever again. I actually hate this job. So in my lunchtime, I drove over the river here in Portland. I walked into PSU and I went, what's the deadline for me signing up for classes, and what do I need? She said, well, the deadline is tomorrow, and given your English A-level results, all you need to do is produce your A-level certificate. And I went, there's my A-level certificate. I'm starting classes tomorrow. I drove back over the bridge and handed in my resignation. So it was very smooth, but nevertheless very welcome.
It's kind of interesting because I'm actually in a film and television program at my college right now.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
I'm looking more into going into more sound work.
Right.
But interesting to get your perspective on being a producer, I believe you said.
Yeah, I mean, producing work is fine, except that you're always the one to blame, right? So the people who work under you blame you because they're there 20 hours a day doing these awful renders that they don't want to do. And then the client is always mad at you because you're never delivering things as you promised and on the deadline that you promised. So no one is ever happy, and that grinds you down after a while when just people are pissed off at you all the time, especially for a friendly, avuncular fellow like me. So I wanted a job where I could be loved.
I guess you get that a lot. I suppose you get that a lot as a teacher, don't you?
Sometimes, yes. I'm not sure I got much love from my physics class this morning, but generally, there's a lot of love. Yes.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Richard.
No, you're welcome.
Darkfire, you just got in here. Do you have a question, or do you have a mic working or anything like that? It doesn't seem like it. We'll skip over him at the moment.
Okay.
Mudbill, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a few. Let me see. I forgot one of them, but I'll see if I come up with it.
Well, let's go from one right now, and then
I'm putting the list together for who's going next.
Okay.
We'll just kind of go over who is. Okay. Darkfire is not going to ask questions. He's listening.
Okay.
So,
okay, I guess first off, because I heard that you didn't actually know that this was a thing, that people still talked about this game at all.
Yeah, it was the weirdest thing. So I'd done a bunch of game voiceovers, and what happens is you turn up at the studio and the dialogue is always presented in a spreadsheet. It's how the programmers program the dialogue. That's got references to where it's used in the game, and they're always very, very short lines of dialogue. You know, it might be, he's hiding behind the rock, or run slowly, or they might hear us. You know, and so you do a whole bunch of these lines. And then at the end of the session, you always do the vocalizations for when the character dies, because generally that shreds your vocal cords and you can't do anything else for the rest of the day. And that was always my favorite part of the job, because game writers would always describe in graphic detail how this character was dying. So it would be bowels eviscerated with scepter, right? Face burning off due to oil pouring on it. Legs blown off, crawling off a cliff face. So you'd have to do all these vocalizations. And the director would say, no, make it more bubbly. So you do all of these, and then your voice will be shredded and you go home. But I turned up to do this gig on this particular day, and it wasn't a spreadsheet. It was just a regular script, which was massively unusual. So we spent about 6 or 7 hours working on the script, and all of the video work that I had done up to that point it's done on what's called a buyout. So they simply pay you for your studio time. You don't get a share of the profits. There's nothing on the back end. So I got paid $500, I think, for that session. So I took my $500 check and I took it home and I cashed it and I carried on with my life and thought nothing of it. And then about 6 months later, I had a YouTube video channel that I used exclusively to post videos of my kids so my parents in England could see them. So I would take videos of the kids, I'd post them up there, and my mum and dad could see them. It wasn't a private channel. I didn't think it needed to be, because who the hell was interested in me? And then I started getting all of these comments on my YouTube page. Hey, it's Daniel from Amnesia. And I was like, who the hell is Daniel from Amnesia? I had completely forgotten about this script. And then someone mentioned a video game, and then I remembered that I'd done this big video game. So I phoned up the guy who ran the recording studio that we did this, and I was like, dude, what's going on? Apparently people know me as Daniel from Amnesia. And he burst out laughing. He said, man, you have no idea. That game has just gone supernova. Everyone's playing it right now. It's on all the bulletin boards. People have really taken to it, and your name is out there. So I was massively popular for a couple of years while the game was out. I didn't do Amnesia 2, I think mostly because my character dies mostly in Amnesia 1. Very rarely make it out. And the game was designed by a couple of Swedish guys. So for 2 years there, I was massively famous as the Daniel guy. Now I'm slightly famous as the Daniel guy.
Yeah, because that whole thing kind of brings me into the thing where do you know of the Let's Play phenomena that is on YouTube?
So this is the recordings of people playing video games, right?
Yeah, they record themselves and the reactions and play video games. Basically, people just watch it.
My nephew is very much into that genre.
Yeah, because you in the game Amnesia is what really sparked that whole thing.
Really?
Yeah,
that's where it started. Wow, I did not know that. That's interesting. My favorite version of that, or my clip of that. Have you guys ever seen Ladder Goat?
Oh my god! Yes.
It is the funniest thing. So there's a dude playing this game where there's a glitch in the game, and if you chase this goat that's in a courtyard towards this ladder, the goat would kind of levitate up the ladder. It was a glitch in the software, and the guy who's playing the game he laughs and laughs for about 20 minutes about Ladder Goat. So do a search for Ladder Goat.
I know the clip you're talking about. It's like from Skyrim, I believe.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what game it's from, but I got hours and hours.
It's from Elder Scrolls.
So I do see the appeal of it. I do see why people can be entertained by it. But I had no idea that it was Amnesia that kicked that whole thing off.
I mean, obviously there were some small things here and there, but that's where it really exploded.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I gather there was one particular player who was quite an advocate for the game that really pushed it out there.
Yes. PewDiePie.
PewDiePie, that's what Miles was saying.
And,
yeah.
and he Felix Kjellberg is his name?
Yep.
And I mean, he is like, as a single user channel, he is the most subscribed user on YouTube. He has almost 50 million, I believe.
And he got his start with your game.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
He actually literally did. I'm pretty sure his first few videos were a Let's Play of Amnesia. It's really interesting.
Wow. No, well, it's no wonder then if that became the poster child for this new form of entertainment. It's no wonder that I had people hound me down on my private family video channel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, it says something to the longevity of the game. That, I mean, how long ago was that done? 6-7 years ago.
yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, people still talk about it now, and the fact that Miles is sitting next to me right now and has organised this video chat is testament to the impact that the game has had on people.
Oh yeah. Anyway,
yeah, like I had one more, but we can wait with that if there's time later. I'll let the other ones go.
Let's save that one because we want to give other people time to ask their questions. Who was up next?
So who's next, Miles?
Jill is next.
Jill, did you type out your question?
How much of the game have you actually seen and know about?
So Miles has got the question here. How much of the game have I actually seen and know about? That is a very good question. Clearly in the voiceovers, we don't see any of the game. And quite often the voiceovers are done when the game is still in development. So the final graphics, etc., aren't often available. What I did as soon as I found out that this game had become popular was I downloaded the trial version on my PC. So I played the trial version from start to finish just to get a feel for it. But I don't know about you guys, but I'm one of those people. I'm not particularly comfortable watching myself on TV or hearing my voiceover work. It's just not what I'm into. So I kind of gritted my teeth and worked my way through the game as much as I could without being distasteful of my appearance in it. But what really struck me about the game was, first of all, that there was no combat in it, which for a first-player character game is quite unheard of at that point. And that it was unlike any other first-player game that I'd ever come across. So I was very taken with its originality.
Yeah. And I must say, you say you grit your teeth at your own performance. I must say, I really do enjoy your performance.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I think most of us are like this. What I tend to do is I tend to only see the flaws in something rather than in something I've done, not in what other people have done. I do a lot of. I love fixing up houses, and I might fix a house up and it looks beautiful, and all I can see is that one bit of trim in the corner isn't perfectly square. Everything else is invisible to me. So that's just me.
I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Moving on, who was next after Jill?
Who's after Jill?
Scary Owl is next.
Scary Owl. Scary Owl's question is...
they're
typing out right now.
He's
Jill
typing
says, good thing there are clearly so many people here who can see the greatness of it.
Oh, that was nice. So Jill said, good thing there are so many people here who can see the greatness of it. So thank you, Jill.
He's still typing out his question. If you have questions and you do not have your mic working, please type out your question.
By the way, guys, I only have about 30 minutes left myself. How much time do you have?
Okay, so we're on a kind of a 30-minute clock here. I'm sure we can get through all the questions in 30 minutes.
Yeah, so I would do one question each since we have a question from someone in the server too.
Okay, so what's the next question we got lined up?
Scary
Owl, right?
Did Frictional specifically seek you out, or did you find them? Frictional is the company who made the game.
Okay, so Frictional had worked with the sound studio that I went and recorded the sound at. Mark is the guy who owns the studio, and I think he knew these two developers from another project that he'd worked on. So they had approached him and said, look, we want someone European or English for this. Do you know anyone? I'd worked with Mark on a couple of radio shows and things that he produced. So he asked me to come in. I did an audition for them. They liked it. And so I guess we kind of sought each other out in that respect.
Very interesting, because I always figured when I don't understand the recording process myself. I'm not versed in production of games or
Right.
film. So I always figured that there was some kind of closer connection that you'd have with a studio, and you'd communicate with like the developers. But it seems more like you just get a script handed to the studio, to like some other studio, and they
Yeah. Well, in fact, it's even worse now. I say worse. If by worse I mean lack of kind of human interaction in the process, because so many people now have access to high-speed internet. That voice work is now really a commodity. So what happens? I belong to an agents here in Portland called All Ears. I think their names is. I can't remember the name. God, that shows you how much contact I have with them, right? And they send out audition requests, and if you're a halfway serious voiceover artist, you have a mini recording studio set up in your house. So I've got a little setup in my office at home. I've got foam on the walls and the ceiling. I've got a really nice mic. I've got the door soundproofed. And so what I do is I record auditions at home. I upload them to the server. And then the client would simply log on to their account, and all of those auditions would be on their screen. They could be from New York. They could be Portsmouth. It could be South America, all over the world. They're all just there on their screen. They click on them. They listen to them. They find one that they like, and then they go back to that person's agent. It might be Billy Joe Dibby Dobby in Texas and say, hey, we really like Billy Joe Dibby Dobby's voice. Book him for a session in a local studio and then upload the footage to us. And so it is very impersonal now. It's literally my audition has my name on it. It has a number on it. It gets uploaded to a server, and that's it.
Very interesting. Thanks for going into detail about that. I'm really
no worries.
About it. Moving on, we have a question from Darkfire. Do you want to read that off?
Surely. Darkfire, your question is...
Okay, I can't read this word. What was your reaction to the...
What was your reaction to the macabre contents of the game? Or maybe it didn't show during the recording sessions. Yeah, like I said, I never saw any of this element to the game until I played it that first time on that PC version. And I've got to say, it kind of freaked me out. It is a very disturbing game, especially when you start getting into it. And Daniel really starts hallucinating and tripping balls. And if you're playing it in a dark room and you've got your headphones on and you're totally immersed in the game and you've got a very big screen, that is a very disturbing environment to be in. So no, I was very impressed, and that's I think one of the reasons why the game became so popular, in that its shock was not in blood and gores, but just in this really subversive, parallel universe, out of whack, everything's slightly disturbing feel to it.
I think it was particularly interesting in seeing the shift from a seemingly innocent character in Daniel, and I'm sure you remember this, and then suddenly learning of this horrible twist that he's kind of a monster.
Yes, absolutely. And the big payoff at the end is that, hey, you're the bad guy in the video game. Oh my God. Yeah.
You end up being the bad guy.
You end up being the person that everyone else in the video game shoots. Yes, that was an added extra twist to it that I think people latched onto and really enjoyed.
Must have been very satisfying to voice a character of that nature.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially because when I was doing the script, I was only doing it one paragraph at a time. And the producer specifically asked me to do that. He said, look, I don't want you to read this thing right away through to the end. I just want you to do this paragraph, and then we're going to do this paragraph. And I think that was a wise decision, because had I known what the big reveal was at the end, it might have coloured my performance earlier on in the game. So I went into it all wide, eyes open, and very pure, and like, hey, this poor character's getting all these horrible things happening to him. And then you get to the end and realise that, oh my God, you're a monster.
Very
yeah, that was fun.
Moving forward, wait, Stormfly, do you have a proper question written out? Or...
Yeah, there should be one there.
Oh, okay. You want to read this out, Raptor?
Raptor, I think. Is that the next one?
That's your student name. Yeah.
Okay, so...
Oh, that's Miles. That's your one, yeah.
So Stormfly is.
Okay, Stormfly.
Was there anything in the game that scared you the most? Something that truly stood out for you?
If there was, I can't remember specifically what it was, because like I said, I played it about 6 years ago. No, I think I would have to play it again and scare the crap out of myself again, just to realize what it was that got me the first time. So I'm sorry, that's a really lame answer. But if I was to play it again, I'm sure it would all come flooding back to me.
Oh, that's fine. Hooded Zombie, do you have a question that you have prepared, or?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
Do you know how much this game has influenced the horror genre of gaming as a whole? Like, just recently, I got linked to a game called, like, Today is My Birthday, and it seems very similar to Amnesia in the fact that you're just running away from enemies.
Yeah, Amnesia basically started the big horror craze.
Right.
On the internet.
So, of that genre, that's a question back at you guys. What are some of the standout games now that you consider to be part of the horror genre?
Definitely, after Amnesia, there were games such as Outlast was a really big one. That one basically took everything that Amnesia did and perfected it.
Right.
There was a game...
Alien Isolation's another big one.
Alien Isolation is a huge one. That one basically just takes the blueprint of Amnesia. Additionally, there's the next game that Frictional Games did called Soma.
I've heard of that one, yeah.
That one is a very impressive title from Frictional. Can you guys think of any other ones? Well, I wouldn't say Dead Space. Dead Space came before.
Resident Evil was like before and after, but it's kind of like its own thing. But
Resident Evil 7.
Oh, Resident Evil 7 had like a lot of Amnesia influence in it.
Yes, Resident Evil 7 took a great inspiration from, specifically from PT, which took inspiration from Amnesia.
Right. Would you say that Resident Evil, though, is a kind of a crossbreed in that it's both a running away game and it's a running towards and shooting game?
Oh, definitely. And what's interesting is that Amnesia is cited as having taken a lot of inspiration from Resident Evil. So.
Interesting. Yeah. So on that kind of evolution of the game genre, then Amnesia just took that big step forward.
Yeah, and they evolve each other because Resident Evil 7 took inspiration from games that took inspiration from Amnesia. So.
Yeah, and I think actually one of the biggest...
Amnesia kind of seemed like the anti-Resident Evil at the time, because they basically did a lot of unconventional things for the horror genre. So that's what kind of
a big
really
thing that
scared
Amnesia
people.
did was the whole thing you can't attack your enemies, you have to run away and hide.
Yeah.
And that's really the key with what forwarded the genre.
Right. Yeah, so you got to learn to either avoid the enemies or find some way of evading the enemies.
Yeah, because if you had the option of, neutralizing the enemy, it would take away a lot of the horror aspect.
Precisely, because you're less of a victim in that environment. So that question, I would throw that back to you. Is there any elements for you in the game that particularly stand out as memorable or particularly terrifying or gruesome?
I will say for myself personally, it's the story in that it's very... it's almost got this cosmic horror feel to it, very Lovecraftian.
Yes, that's what I felt. Yeah,
I enjoy that immensely with the character of. I don't know if you remember I don't know if you know the character of Alexander and how he was interacting with Daniel, and there was a lot of really interesting story there.
For me it was very gothic.
Definitely.
Yeah,
it had that whole Victorian horror feel to it. As I was doing the voiceover, what I was imagining, what I was visualizing was the version of Dracula with Gary Oldman as Dracula and Keanu Reeves in it as well. That was the visual I was imagining. Very lush, very Victorian, very gothic. And actually, as it turned out, that was pretty much how they nailed it. So in that respect, my visualization of the game beforehand was pretty in keeping with how it turned out.
Very interesting. I don't want to keep delaying because Miles is saying that they have to go in a little bit.
In about 15 minutes or so. Yeah. Next question then.
Okay,
So I did think of a question. I did think of a question myself.
Trial, I don't know if we have anything yet, but if we don't, then we are going to go on to Huge Logan's question. I'm going to ping him, see if he can join. And then he'll read the quote, and then I think we'll head off because I need to go home. So.
I can read off Logan's question if he so desires. I have a question myself. I don't know if this is a personal question, but I find it really interesting that you live in Oregon, because I would have figured that you would have lived in England.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, that's a very good question. I met my wife we worked for the same company together in London in the early 90s, and she's American. And so we started dating, we got married, we started our family in the late 90s, and after our kids were born, she got very homesick. And she had gone to University of Oregon, and her first job out of college had been in Portland. She was then offered a job working for the same client that she was working for in London, but out of the office in Portland. And so it all seemed, at that point, the stars were aligned. So we said, sure, let's go. We'll go and live in Portland for a couple of years, see what it's like. That was in 2001. And here I am, 17 years later, still here. So I think I'm stuck.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, my eldest daughter still lives in England. She lives with her boyfriend in North London, and my parents live on the south coast. So I do go back twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year to see them. But I'm pretty much a Portlander now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I believe, Miles, you say you were going to read off Huge Logan's question?
So Huge Logan's question.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you get the Greenwood formula scam infomercial gig, and what did you think of it?
Oh my God, that thing was the... Okay, so a little bit of background. I had given up doing TV work, and I got a phone call from a guy. It's about a year after I'd started teaching, who said, "Hey, I've got this infomercial I need someone to do. You've been recommended to me. Are you interested?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "It's a piece of software. It does automatic trading, and all you have to do is read out some lines off an auto cue, and that'll be it." So I turn up at this gig, and I haven't even seen the script, and there's this auto cue for this thing called the Greenwood formula. And I start reading the script, and reading off an auto cue is a real superpower of mine. It's what I used to do in my TV work in the UK. And I can read anything off an auto cue, having never read it before. So the script's going by, and I'm reading it, and I'm getting about 2 or 3 paragraphs into this script. I was like, whoa, time out. I said, hang on a minute, Dave. You're telling me that all this, we can make all these claims? This seems really sketchy. And he was like, no. We've made hundreds of these videos. We put these big banners across the bottom. Results not typical, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you sure? He's like, it's fine. We've done a bunch of them. So we carried on filming, and we got all of the footage done in one day. And again, it was one of those gigs. They wrote me a check for it. It's 500 quid or something for the day. And I walked off and I cashed the check, never thought anything about it. And then I started getting hounded on the internet by people saying that I was running this scam, this Greenwood formula scam. And it turns out that the whole thing was a scam. And what they had done is they had used my footage as part of a program that would take over people's computer and take their money off them, and then they wouldn't get their money back. So I was contacted by the FBI. I was contacted by the regional police. I gave interviews to everyone. Basically, I issued an apology as well to everyone who lost money. It's like, I had nothing to do with this. I'm really sorry you got scammed. In some way, I kind of got scammed as well, because I had no idea what it was about. So if any of you know anyone who was hit by that Greenwood formula scam, then you have my sincere and heartfelt apologies. I think the FBI are pushing forward with a prosecution. It was a couple of guys out of California. They were running all the software off a server overseas that wasn't under American jurisdiction. So yeah, the whole thing was horrible, and I apologize for anyone who was involved in that.
Really sorry to dig that right back up, but hopefully we can end here.
Yeah, that sounds horrifying though.
I was gonna say hopefully. Yeah, go. No, you go.
Huge Logan. Says thank you so much for the story on that, Richard. That was some crazy stuff.
That was some crazy stuff, and that was really scary for a while because these people were super sketchy. I think they were Armenian or something. Not I've got anything against Armenians, but they were part of some underground organized crime thing, and it was pretty interesting. I might write a book about it one day.
There are actually some Armenian characters in Amnesia: The Dark Descent.
I don't remember that.
Yes.
Oh, that's where you travel to Armenia before you find the.
That's
temple?
right. That's it. Maybe the castle.
Oh, was it
in
Algeria? Yeah, it was Algeria. My bad.
Yeah, there you go. All right, do you have any more questions?
No more questions, but
so you're gonna say a quote.
Okay.
Someone wanted you to say.
We're going to say a quote, I believe.
Okay, so here's the quote. So I'll wait for everyone to calm down. Like that, just that one right there.
and perhaps read it off a few times so you can.
It's for someone. They want to hear you say it.
Just go over it a few times yourself. So.
I met a traveler from an antique Munchi land. Spiraling towers and endless deserts seemingly stretched far beyond its horizons. It is still early, and Alexander is busy preparing the brain scan later today.
Amazing.
I don't know if you heard that.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
I know someone who will love this.
If you ever need context for that little line,
yes.
Search on Frictional's other games.
Stormfly says
okay.
I think you'll enjoy that.
So now you're creating a cross-genre game in which you will insist that they use me on their next video game and pay me a lot of money. I think that's where this is headed, isn't it? Right?
Oh, certainly. That was the whole point of the interview. I mean, come on.
Precisely. I'm so glad you guys are on board with that. Yeah. Bring back topping. I think you could, get a GoFundMe for that or something.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
No. You know what, guy? I'm very flattered that you wanted to spend time with me today. Thank you very much. I hope I was able to answer your questions to the best of my ability. If there's any other follow-up questions that you want to do, get them over to Miles, and Miles can type them out, and I'm happy to do some written replies. Or if you want to do this again sometime, then I'm totally up for that. So up to you.
Sweet.
Thank you so much, sir, for
You're welcome.
this interview.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you. And I'm going to hand you back.
Okay, so Jill says.
Jill says we got one more comment.
It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. You're a fantastic guide. It's been an honor.
Oh.
And Darkfire says this was rad. Cheers. Scary Owl, thanks a ton, Richard. Stormfly, pleasure to meet you, Richard.
Yeah, pleasure to meet all of you. Good conversation. I enjoyed hanging out with you. And now I'm going to go and grade a gazillion physics papers. So, ciao, amigos.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye-bye.